Welcome to a presentation on how to enable 123 Sync Debug. So what does 123 Sync Debug do? It activates debugging messages within 123 Sync that are written to the processing log to facilitate problem resolution. It generates vast amounts of data and slows down the sync speed, so use it sparingly and only when requested. Turn off 123 Sync Debug once debugging is complete. When should this feature be enabled? It should only be enabled when additional information is required about the sync process, and this is by the request of 123 Sync customer support. 123 Sync Debug provides you with what we call selective debugging. You can debug the login process, you can debug the timer, or the contact sync, or the activity sync, or the task sync for a whole database, or the full sync for all the users. Or even better, for the multi-user installation, you can turn on debugging just for one user. So if you're having problems with one user and we request that you try to find out what the issue is, one user debugging is what you should be using. 123 Sync Debug is a tool or an option used by our developers to debug any issues that arise with our 123 Sync software. The goal of this video is to provide accessibility of this option to our resellers and customers so that issues, if you encounter any issues that are on the field, that they can just be forwarded to 123 Sync and we can actually find out from the log what is going on and resolve the issue. Enabling 123 Sync Debug will expose data from the database. We don't expose any passwords, but we'll expose some email addresses we're trying to sync, contact details, and so on. All processing logs that are sent to us are deleted once we examine them. We don't keep any of that information. We delete the information from our systems. So once the 123 Sync Debug is turned off, we highly recommend that you delete all the log files from the installation, and you can do that from the Tools menu in 123 Sync. So without further ado, let's look at 123 Sync and see how we can actually set the debugging mode. As you will see on the Tools, and you go to Advanced, we have a set of settings here. And what you will see, once debug is enabled, you'll have a debug enable setting that will actually come up here. So to enable debugging, click on About 123 Sync, and on the version number, double click. On a double click, you will see a prompt, and on the prompt you type 8901. Again, now you have a debugging level enabled. Let's close it. Now that we have debugging level enabled, let's see what it does. We go to Tools and you go to Advanced Settings, and you'll have debug enabled. Here you'll see a whole set of options that are available to you to debug. In general, the top options from log, file incrementer, and above are for our internal use, and we do not recommend you using any of it. The interesting part is to provide information are these options here. Login database, you can track contacts going from Act to Outlook, or contacts going from Outlook to Act to get the detailed information. Also, you can track the calendar from Act to Outlook and Outlook to Act. So it will give you fully detailed information on everything that goes on about the interaction between 123 Sync and your Exchange or Outlook server. So let's go back to the general interface again and have just another look at our settings. What we have here is 3 users that are enabled to sync. We assume we're having an issue with Chris Huffman and we want to track why it's taking, for example, why is it taking so long to synchronize Chris Huffman's calendar. So we go to Tools, go to Advanced, Settings, Debug, and we can actually go into the user debug. And when we come here, we click on username and we say Chris Huffman. Make sure that you have the right name, that you have exactly what it's listed on the user listing in 123Sync. Otherwise, it will not activate. So you click OK. So then we go back here again and we go into Advanced Settings and we go into Debug Enabled. And under User Debug, now we have Chris Huffman. That now we can say, okay, I want to debug the calendar. So check on that. And I usually double check here and see if it's actually been checked. So you click on Settings, Debug Enabled, and then on User Debug, you can see Debug Calendar. So now all the interaction in the calendar will be recorded into the log file. And from there, we can actually find out or figure out where the delays or where the errors may be occurring. So to turn off debugging in 123Sync, you basically follow the steps backwards, or you just reverse this process. You go into Help, About 123Sync, just click on Version, and say, okay, put in your password, 8901, debugging level enabled. So you can just go into Tools, Advanced Settings, and you go into the User Debug, and it's Debug Calendar. You just uncheck that, and then just go into, again, go back in there, debugging level. So on the user, there's nothing selected. I usually unselect the Chris Huffman, so I just click on that, and then just remove the name from it, and I say, do you want to clear? Yes. So now debugging is all clear. So now there's no debugging, no further debugging information being written to the log. So if you enable any of these, for example, if you enable the main options, if you look here, if you enable Act to Outlook Contact, now all the users will have debugging information. So all the users that you have enabled, all the Act to Outlook transfers will be logged into the log. It will cause a lot of data to go into the log. So we do not recommend these options if you're running, or this option, if you're running on a multi-user environment. You should focus on a single user instead of a multi-user environment. So let's just disable that, and then you could just use that in order to do this, in order to do the debugging of 123Sync. Just a little bit about the processing log. In order to access the processing log, just click here on the processing log and just open the log. That will open the log for you, and then you can actually access all the information. And you can clear the log as well. You can just go straight and clear the log, and that will delete only this one particular log. 123Sync creates a log every day. So if you have multiple logs that you've created, you should go into OpenPaths log, and then that will show you where it is, and you can delete all the logs from the system. But this is the log that we will be requesting for you to send us, so we can actually find out how to resolve the issue or any issues that you may have with your sync. Well, all good things come to an end. This concludes our brief instructional presentation on how to use the debugging feature in 123Sync. Again, contact us at 123sync.com if you have any questions, and have a great day and a great sync.